Good morning. It's Wednesday. Let's see. What is this? October 20th. This is the third day of the 21st Klingspor's Woodworking Shop Woodworking Extravaganza. I'm Mike Z.
I'm Chris, and wow, I wasn't sure where you were going with the 21st, 20th of October, 2021. There's a lot of 20s and 21s in that
Yeah.
conversation.
Wait till tomorrow. There'll be 21. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just have to sleep through that. I don't know that I can handle that much pressure.
But thank you for joining us. We are Klingspor's Woodworking Shop, and we're having a virtual extravaganza all this week. Today is going to be Richard from Jim Sanders is going to join us at 11 o'clock. First, we're going to kind of talk about contour sanding because that's one of the things that we have an abundance of is trying to make sanding easier for you in a lot of different ways. So you don't have to use just your hand or a block. We actually have power contour sanding attachments.
Yeah, the old days of having to press through with a hand sanding and make your fingers all numb and going to sleep and carpal tunnel and all that. We've tried to remedy some of that by offering some alternatives that work really, really well.
Absolutely. Very flexible. Put them in a drill press. We even have some that can go onto bench grinders for higher RPMs. So there's a whole line of contour sanding products available. What we go from 10-inch all the way down to 1 inch. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of options there.
Yeah, and being that Mike and I both are woodworkers, I personally use these a lot. Do a lot of sort of contour parts on the CNC and furniture pieces. Man, I'll tell you, these have just changed the way I sand and have just made my life a lot easier when I get to that stage.
Absolutely. Especially moldings. I found moldings to be much faster and easier to sand with the contour sanding options that we have. The spindle mounted Mac mop's my favorite. 7-inch by 2-inch. That one works wonders with a drill.
Yep,
So,
for sure.
speaking of abrasives, though, during this week, 15% off all abrasive discs, sheets, rolls, pre cut rolls, you name it. Klingspor Abrasives is 15% off until the 23rd. So, make sure that if you're going to put in your order, now's a good time to save some money before the end of the year.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of options depending on your application. We can dial you right into the right disc for you.
Absolutely. And then we have, if you're looking for a little bit of research, maybe something for reading material or watching that's not on the web, there's 30% off books and DVDs. So make sure you check out woodworkingshop.com and then check on books and DVDs, and all of them are 30% off.
Yeah,
Can't
and
beat
as a
that.
matter of fact, that'll come in handy later. We've got our guest coming on this afternoon, Randy Johnson from Next Wave. He's actually got a book, and I believe we've got it in stock, CNC Essentials. A
Yes,
very
we
good
do.
book if you're looking into that. But all our books, check them out. Everybody still likes to read and dog ear pages.
Absolutely. You can't go wrong with that.
I don't know. My daughter gives me a fit because she said dog ear in a pages ruins the book. I said, just makes it look used.
Well, that and a little bit more fluffy. So, what else do we have? So, if you're looking for CA glue, we have our brand of CA glue. It is Stick Fast. They are on sale 10% off, as well as ArborTech until the end of the month. Select ArborTech items will be on sale 10% off. So, if you're looking to get into power carving, Friday we're going to have both King Arthur, Mampa, and ArborTech all videos for them showcasing what they can do. And I have to say that ball gouge that's right in the center is probably one of my favorite. I wasn't really big into power carving, but then when I got to see the versatility of that used live when we did a show with our resident carver, Paul, he showed just how versatile that can be. So,
Yeah, let's think about that. If you're doing power carving, you're going to need all of those things you just mentioned. You're going to need the Arbortech products. You're going to need the contour sanding products. And if you make a mistake, the CA glue to put it back together. And then you can read a book to learn more about power carving.
there you
That's,
go.
that's a win-win all the way around on that aspect.
Absolutely. So, tell us a little bit about you've made a 7 video series that we have on our YouTube channel, Woodworking Shop on YouTube.
Mhm.
What is so? What are we covering in this series?
Well, because we have so many things that we offer, we wanted to break that out and give everybody an opportunity to learn about each one. So we cover our most popular product, the sanding mop. We also have the sanding star, and then we cover how to assemble a sanding mop. We get tons of questions on how to assemble that, so we've included that video as well. Also, our spindle mounted Mac mop. which we sell quite a few of those, and those obviously have a good place and for a variety of applications. And then something a little bit different is using our shop roll material in our slotted mandrels to create a custom mop of your own. And then, of course, we cover some of the mandrel options that we have available for our mops, which most people just think you slap it on a mandrel, but we've got quite a few to choose from, which allows it to be very versatile in your shop depending on your setup and what you're trying to do.
Sweet. Well, we'll get started here with the very first one. This is just an overview of everything. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment. We'll, be able to address them live as we go along. So don't hesitate or call us at 800-228-0000 to place your order. Visit us at woodworkingshop.com and check out all of the past extravaganza fun at woodworkingextravaganza.com.
Yep.
Hey everybody, Chris here with Klingspor's Woodworking Shop. Today we're out in my shop and we are talking contour sanding. Klingspor's Woodworking Shop offers a lot of options in this area, just like we're known for discs and belts. Hopefully after today you're going to know us for all the things we have available for contour sanding. Many people cringe at the idea or just run from the thought of having to sand contours. Well, at Klingspor's Woodworking Shop we want to make that easy. That's why we have so many options available. So today's video is going to be part one of a multi-part series on the topic, and we're going to do a brief overview of some of the things we have available. Look for future videos covering the individual items later, and then that'll be more specific to certain applications. So let's dive right in, let's have some fun, and let's get to sanding. So as you can see, there's not a lack of options. Whether you need to make a custom setup using our slotted mandrels, or you still have to do a little hand sanding. Take advantage of our flexible roll material. We have this available in our shop roll and our gold roll. And if, well, you're not sure which roll is right for you, check out the sampler pack with a variety of grits in a 2x12 strip. We have our 1, 1.5, and 2-inch mini mop, as well as our eyelet stars for all the very small detailed application. Stepping up, we have our sanding star or our sanding mop. The sanding mops happen to be available independently with a variety of different components to make up the item you need, or you buy a starter kit right out of the gate. Just pick your grit and go, and it gives you everything you need to get started. We also have a 1 and a 2-inch spindle mounted Mac mop for a little heavier applications or wider contour sanding. And then we have a variety of mandrel options to get you started depending on how you need to fit it to your system. So as you can see at Klingspor's Woodworking Shop, when it comes to contour sanding, we've got you covered.
To learn more, visit us at woodworkingshop.com or any of your favorite social media sites. You can also contact us at 800-228-0000 and someone will be happy to help. Well, if you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe so you'll be notified of future videos as we release them. Well, thanks for watching and have a great day. It's always so weird seeing yourself on camera.
It happens. So with the sampler kits, if you just go to woodworkingshop.com and you search samplers, every bit of samplers that we have shows up. So as far as, we have 5-inch 8-hole discs, 6-inch 16-hole, which fits basically almost everything out there that's a 6-inch sander. Just search up that and you'll also find those gold sampler kits as well as the shop roll sampler kits. And they're a good way just to kind of introduce you to the material without having to, get a 10-meter roll if you don't want to. So it works really nicely that way if you just want to try it out. And at 15% off, what's to lose?
Yeah, and I mean, I used to be a big advocate for our sheets because you could just cut them and tear them as you want. But the more when I got into wood turning years ago, I just started realizing that the rolls are perfect because you can just tear off what you want. You can buy the roll width that's suitable for what you typically do. And so now I usually just buy the 2-inch wide rolls and tear off as I go. And they're great for a variety of uses. So I'm a huge fan of the rolls now, and that's kind of I even built a custom roll dispenser to house all the rolls that I have. So
What a fantastic time to show that off. Do you happen to have that nearby?
no,
Okay.
not in here. I don't know.
But yeah, no, that's need to come up with some plans for that because that was a nice roll, very simple, easy to tear off. That was a very nice setup. Alrighty, let's take a look here at the next one.
Hey everybody, Chris here with Klingspor's Woodworking Shop. Back again with another video in our series on contour sanding. Today, we're going to be taking a look at our sand mop starter kits. We have two options, a 4 and a 6, and a variety of grit range options to suit your needs. Each kit will come with a couple different items, but we're going to look at those and see which kit might be right for you.
Klingspor's Woodworking Shop offers two different sizes in their sand mop starter kits, a 4-inch and a 6-inch. Each kit is similar, but slightly different. Each kit will get you a set of spacers. This allows you to put more spacers if you need a fluffier mop, or adds no spacers if you need a mop that's a little more standard. Each kit will also include two mandrels. Now this is where they will vary slightly. The 4-inch comes with a shorter mandrel with a flat end, as well as a longer mandrel, which is a double mop. The double mop allows for multiple sheets to be able to be applied to the mandrel. This allows you to have a wider mop in case you need it for those wider or deeper cuts. Keep in mind that thread will protrude through and could cause some issues if you're not careful, so just be cautious and know which your application may be. The shorter one, on the other hand, has a flat bottom, which allows you to get much deeper into the cut, but yet you can't stack as many strips to make a wide mop. This does allow for much closer, more accurate sanding in tighter areas. Has a 1/4-inch shank and still has plenty of room even if you wanted to add some spacers. So either mop of these in the 4-inch kit works fantastic. The 6-inch kit also comes with a double mop as well as a shorter version of that. Each kit will also include a set of stabilizers. These work really well depending on your application. Add the stabilizers if you need to create a tighter mop or create more of a burnishing look, or you can leave them off and create more of a fluffy, more contour following mop. Or go crazy since you get two mandrels and a bunch of strips and make one with and one without. And finally, what drives this whole kit? The refills. Each kit will get you 2 packs of refills, so you have a lot of options and a lot of ways you can configure each of your sets. The 4-inch comes with a 1-inch wide strip, which is much better suited for that smaller, more detailed application. The 6-inch comes with a 2-inch wide strip, which is much better for wider moldings and larger applications. So these components can be purchased separately, but we've made it easy and put them all in these kits for you. So 4 or 6-inch, 80 to 320, single mop or double mop, Klingspor's Woodworking Shop's got you covered. So save some time on your next sanding project and pick up your Klingspor's Woodworking Shop Sand Mop Starter Kit today.
Well done. So yeah, there's a lot of options there when it comes down to the fluffiness of the sanding mop. Now, what is the RPM that you would recommend for most users on those?
I typically run mine around the 17 to 2000 RPM, 1700 to 2000 RPM. Seems to be a good range. You get much faster than that, and it becomes more of a burnishing tool. You go much less, and it may not abrade the way you want it to. So somewhere in that range is pretty good.
Okay. And now, if you go higher than that with this, are you going to get more sanding action out of it, or what do you receive? Because we've had a lot of people that run them pretty fast, like 9,000 RPM.
Yeah, well, I think the max on that from Klingspor is 3,200.
Okay.
What happens is it creates such a centrifugal force that the strips become too stiff. So as they come around and abrade the workpiece, they no longer curl to follow the contour. They're just stiff, and then you potentially could break the ends off as it makes contact with your workpiece. So definitely want to err on the side of a little lower than higher. So
Okay.
usually with the abrasives, especially with like the mops, whatever the maximum RPM recommendations are, I usually drop that at least 25-30% to get the best yield and contour following out of the product.
And if you push too hard into the product, what would then happen? The same kind of thing where they're too stiff to actually contour, and then you start pushing the abrasive in harder.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you want to let the tips of those little strips just barely make contact with your workpiece. That helps you follow your contour better. Now, obviously, you do need to press in some so that it can properly follow the contour, but there does become a sort of a line there where if you push in too much, you're compressing those little fingers too much to the point where they can't properly follow the contour like they're supposed to. So you got to find that happy medium. And once you get your mop fluffy, It's fairly easy to see what's happening, and you can use a light pencil line. And I believe in an upcoming video, I showcase how do I use a pencil line on a furniture part,
Hmm.
and you can see how it slowly removes that. That's kind of the ideal scenario. You don't want to just go in and dig it away. You want to lightly abrade it because this is designed for following contours, and when used properly, they'll follow the contour without removing the detail that you've spent so much time creating.
And so, with that said, since typically with abrasives, there is some sort of backer that's pressing the abrasive into the workpiece.
Hmm.
With contour sanding, you have flexible J Flex or cloth.
Hmm.
So, what would be your recommendation if someone says that they want 120 grit?
Well, usually it depends on the mop. The Mac mops typically sand close to the grit they're listed. There may be a little bit finer on the sanding mops and the sanding stars. They typically sand at least one full grit in the range higher. Once they're broken in, that's the key statement there. Once they're broken in, they'll send at least one full grit in the range higher. And in some cases, it may seem like they're sanding one and a half grits higher in the range.
Okay. So, if you're, for instance, if you're expecting, a 240 grit, maybe drop it down to a, 180.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
so usually that's the case. Now the 80 grit, I mean it's an 80 grit abrasive. So I mean if you're looking to keep your detail, just like with other products, I recommend starting a little finer than you think you need to do your initial removal. So I might be more inclined to start with a 100 grit, just to see how that performs because the whole key is you don't want to ruin what you've worked to build. So
Okay.
start finer, and if you need something more aggressive, then work backwards. It's just a safer place to give it a good start.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of all the questions we get on these because they're so versatile that
Hmm.
sometimes the applications can vary very widely. That'd be
Hmm.
a better way to say it. All right, so let's check out this next one here.
Hey everybody, Chris here with Klingspor's Woodworking Shop, back with another in our video series on contour sanding. In today's video, we're going to cover a topic that, well, we get a lot of questions on, and that's how to assemble a sanding mop. It's not that difficult, and we have a lot of options available whether you buy the components individually or whether you buy them in a starter set with all the components grouped together. Either way, they're going to assemble the same, and so that's what we're going to do right now.
Assembling a sand mob can be done in a number of ways. On the 4-inch, which you see here, I've filled in every single layer all the way around. On the 6-inch, we're going to do this a little differently. We're only going to do partial fill, and we're going to use a series of spacers on this double mandrel. 4-inch mop is made up of 1-inch wide strips 4 inches long, which makes the 4-inch diameter mop. The 2x6 mop is made up of 2-inch wide strips 6 inches long. Now, yours should look like this with all the holes already punched out. If yours looks like this, no worries. It's already perforated. Just simply press it, pop it out. It's all part of the manufacturing process. Now, the first thing you want to do once you get your strips oriented is figure out which mandrel you're going to use. And once you do that, take the nut off one end. Now, these do come with 2 washers, so you do want to take off the nut and the outer washer that's closest to the nut. Leave that furthest one on there. In some cases, it may be helpful to find something to hold that mandrel while you do your assembly, but it can be done without it. And if you plan on using a stabilizer, now would be the time to put the first one on. And if you haven't seen our sand mop starter video, the stabilizer essentially makes the mop more of a burnishing tool than a tool that follows contours. So in this case, we are not going to be applying that. We're going to go straight ahead with the strips. Now how this is done, you take the strips and put them back to back. So you take 2 strips back to back, and then you lay those on the mandrel. That is your first layer. Quick tip here. When you're assembling a mandrel, it does help to have something to hold that mandrel in place while you do the assembly, whether that be a clamp, a vise, or any other thing that can affix that without it moving. In this case, I am going to be using the keyless chuck to hold that in place on top of the counter while I do the rest of the assembly. So your first layer, you want to make sure that the sides are even and everything's kind of laid out normally. Step 2 on this is do the exact same thing, taking 2 strips back to back, and you want to lay those crisscross from the other. And again, kind of align that as you go. It's a lot simpler than waiting till the end. Now you've done 2 layers. Next, repeat the process again, 2 strips back to back, and lay those on there crisscross from those. So you want to do those at a diagonal. And that is the 3rd layer. Repeat the process again and fill in the remaining gap going the other direction. Now, at this point, you could just leave that alone, or you could continue to fill and go all the way around and fill in voids again like we did with the 1x4. But in this case, we're just going to do those 4, and that is going to be our section. Now at this point, I am adding a spacer in this. I do want this to be a little bit fluffier. Now you can add spacers anywhere along the route. You can do it every other strip, every other layer, every 12 layers. It really doesn't matter. In this case, I'm going to do a complete run and then add a spacer. And all you do from there is repeat the process. And you just continue filling that up. Every time I lay the 4 layers down, I put a spacer. Do my crisscross layers again and put another spacer. And because this is an extra long mandrel, we could literally stack as many strips on here as we want. You just rinse and repeat until you get the mop full the way you like it. Now, because this process can take a little time and unloading is not very fun, we do recommend getting a mandrel for every grit you plan to use. This saves a lot of time and is very helpful whenever it comes time to changing grits. One way you can do that is if you have a dowel, you can just press all of those off onto a dowel or a bolt, and then when you need it again, you can refill it. But in this case, I would still recommend getting a separate mandrel for each grit you plan to use. In this case, we're going to fill in the last 2 gaps, and then we'll cap it off. And in case you haven't heard so far, you put 2 strips back to back, and you lay them on, filling in the gaps. And once you get that last strip on there, you can sit back and enjoy that sense of accomplishment. But you're not quite done. Let's cap it all off, put the washer on the outside, and then tighten down the nut. Now the beauty of having this double mandrel is this does allow for a very thick mop or thin, however you want. And if we would have added more spacers more frequently, this would have certainly filled up the gaps and created an even more of a spacious, more fluffy mop. And once you get that all snug down, you can take a wrench, pair of pliers, whatever you got, and just finish that tensioning process. Now you do want to make sure that you're holding the strips in place, because the last thing you want is to start having strips slide around. And as you can see with the 1x4, it's a very flat end. With the 2x6, using that double mandrel, you do have some threads sticking out. So let's finish that off and get something to tension that down. Now you might be looking at this mop and thinking, man, this is not the mop I've seen in pictures before. Well, you'd be right. This is a brand new mop. Notice all the factory edges, everything's sharp, everything's crisp. You can see with all the components, mandrels, spacers, stabilizers, the different sizes, the different grits, there's really no reason why you can't use these in your shop. Customize the one that's right for you. Now, because this is a new mop, you want to take some time to break those factory edges. So grab some scrap wood and just have some fun. Be aggressive and get all those little perforations loose and get those fingers fluffy. You want to go from looking sharp and crisp to looking like this.
All right. So there was one thing that you had in there that's very key, and I think a lot of people may miss it, and that is to break the edges of a contour sanding mop
Mhm.
on, like a piece of wood, but something that's 90 degrees, a nice crisp edge of piece of wood. Do you want to do it on steel or anything like that?
You can, but what I typically recommend is keep your mediums separate. If you're going to buy a mop for, brushing or burnishing metal,
Hmm.
then buy a mop just for that. Don't do any kind of wood and metal with the same mop. You run the risk of cross contamination and having some other issues. But regardless, yeah, you just need something scrap, and sharp edge is better, but it doesn't have to be. I've taken a flat piece of wood before and just really been aggressive. Now this is one time where we give you permission to be aggressive with the mop and really bury it and just make sure you're covering all the edges when you're breaking it in, because the whole purpose is to break those perforations and make that crisp punched edge into a nice soft end, because this is a very flexible cloth. And so that's the best way to really do it, is to get those crisp edges into that where they're frayed. That's what you're looking for.
Gotcha. And now, how do you know when one's worn down? Because you said that, we recommend that they have a new mandrel or a different mandrel for each grit. So therefore they're not having to remove and swap it out every time. But how do you know when it's worn down?
Well, when you've reached the center, because think about it, a 6-inch mop, the more you use it, eventually is going to turn into a 4-inch mop, and a
Hmm.
4-inch mop will turn into a 2-inch mop. And, we've got customers that have literally taken them and left them that way and utilize the smaller mop for certain projects, and then they'll just keep using the larger mops for their main project. But you've always got different size mops laying around if you use them quite a bit. And mandrels aren't that expensive. And so, that's the other reason why we recommend getting a different grit or different mandrel for each grit you use. Or in this case, if you had 6 mops in a 120 grit, for instance, and 120 is the most common that I use for what I do. And let's say you've worn a 6-inch mop down to 4 inches, and you've worn another 6-inch mop down to 3 inches. Well, you've just got multiple sizes that can come in handy for different applications. So, you know, it works, and those are removable. But like I said in the video, we do recommend popping those off onto a bolt or something that you can keep them together. You don't want to have to reassemble those, especially after they're fluffy, because those little strips, they start interlocking and they become quite cumbersome to deal with when you disassemble them a strip at a time. So if you
Gotcha.
can slide them right off of that mandrel onto a bolt and then just take a nut and just kind of tighten them down just so they don't move, it makes it a little easier to reload them on the mandrel later if you had to.
So with you tightening up that nut, are you able to run them in forward and reverse?
Yeah, but really, those are better used one direction, because once you start using them, like I said, they'll start folding and curling a certain way,
Hmm.
and running them the other direction. You may not get the same results that you did running them forward, but since you can potentially use them in reverse, you just got to be a little more cautious of what's going to happen and be aware that it may not stand the way you want it.
So would you recommend someone maybe putting like a thread locker of some sort on there just to keep the nut from backing off, or just keep it running in a forward direction?
I always just recommend running it in a forward direction. Most of the time, if you need, there's no need to run it in reverse. Usually, what I've found is if for some reason I feel I need to have it coming the other direction because of the way the grain's oriented or something like that, I just put my drill on the other, or my tool on the other side of the piece of wood. So you can manipulate your tool enough to make that work, and I've not had any issues with that.
I did have a customer one time that came up with the idea of, I think it was like a 3/8 dowel rod or half-inch dowel rod. I can't remember exactly what it was. It didn't seem like it was half inch. It was just slightly under. And what he was doing was he would take and make the Mac mop, or not the Mac mop, the sanding mop onto the dowel and then transfer it onto the mandrel. So it was a
Mhm.
little bit easier to basically build what he was trying to do with his. Do you have any tips or tricks on, other than the keyless chuck that you had in the videos, or another way that you know of to do it?
I mean, really, if you're putting it in a drill press, especially with the 6-inch, um, yeah, you'll not want to do that in the drill press, because you're basically, gravity's going to be fighting you. They can be put into a bench vise, any kind of clamp. If you've got dog holes in your workbench, just drop that mandrel down in the dog hole. I mean, there's a lot of ways to make that work. The whole thing is you just want it to be fairly stable while
Hmm.
you're loading it. And what I found was, a bench vise, or in this case, I used the motor arbor just because it worked, and that worked fine. So just keeping it sort of stable. Where, and you could even use um, a clamp. Turn a clamp and lay it down flat, and just clamp the mandrel into the clamp. You'll be fine. Doesn't take much. You're not putting a ton of pressure. You're just loading that mandrel easily, and you know Now with the 4-inch, that's a different animal. You really don't need anything to keep it stable because it's got a flat washer on the outside, so
Hmm.
it'll stand up on the workbench all by itself. And the sanding star, you don't load them at all. So
Yeah. So the sanding star already comes ready to go.
mhm,
I usually recommend that if someone's looking at a sanding mop, just because then you get the idea of what it can do, but it's not as fluffy. I think it's only about what, maybe an inch total
mhm.
when it's fully fluffed out and ready to go. But at the same time, it's 4 inches in diameter.
And that's what I use the most of in my shop.
Mhm.
I buy a lot of the stars because they're easy to just grab and go, and they're 4 inch. And if I do need the larger size, well, I can certainly build it. But for most of my projects where I'm looking to really get into some tight contours, the sanding star for me works really well.
All right. And then also we have the mini mops. So we're talking 1 inch, 1.5, and 2 inch. And
Mhm.
not 100% sure which one's next on this list of the 7 videos, but are you ready to check this one out?
Sure, why not?
All right, here we go.
Hey everybody, Chris here with Klingspor's Woodworking Shop. Back again with another video in our contour sanding series. In today's video, we're going to discuss the difference between the sanding star and the sanding mop. They are vastly different. They look the same, but they will have different options available based on your needs. So let's break them down and see which one's right for your shop.
The sanding mops and stars look similar but are quite different. The mops are available in more customizable options, 4 or 6-inch diameter, as well as a variety of spacers, mandrels, and other accessories that are available for it. The sanding star, on the other hand, is pre-assembled on a mandrel and only available in 4-inch. So since one tool is not right for every job, let's take a look at some of the benefits of each of these different applications and see which one might be right for you. Some applications include furniture parts, very detailed moldings. Maybe you're a wood turner trying to sand a bowl, or a carver or CNC operator carving out very detailed pieces. The sanding mops and stars will work on all of them, but not each mop is right for each application. The 6-inch mop wouldn't work well for that very detailed carving, however, it would work well on the furniture part. The 6-inch diameter and the ability to space out those strips to create a very fluffy mop are perfect for that application. Would allow you to hit all that sweeping contour and as well as the smaller details of that furniture part. The sanding mops and stars, on the other hand, were much better suited for the more detailed carving. It would allow it to get into those tight spots and really clean that up without ruining the detail of your workpiece. It also makes them the ideal tool for sanding out tool marks inside and outside of bowls. Wood turners typically use hand sanding or discs for this application, but these work very well for removing the tool marks and leaving the surface very clean. Also gets down into the very detailed part of many carvings. So you can see the size makes all the difference in the world. The smaller are great for the more detailed pieces, the large for much your larger furniture pieces. Either way, we've got the right mop or star for you. Now, they are mounted easily in a stationary tool like a drill press, or in this case, a right angle drill. Now, from the factory, they're very crisp as you can see, so we've got to break them in. The way we do that is with some scrap material. I've got this clamped down, and so all we need to do is just be very aggressive to break those factory edges and loosen them up, and you'll see the mop will become very fluffy. Little slow-mo action to give you an idea of what's happening here, and all you're really trying to do is break those edges. This is an often overlooked but very crucial step in the process. If you leave those factory edges and go right to your workpiece, you're not going to be happy. It will scratch and scar them up and probably lose some of that detail. So aggressively sand for a minute or two until you can see the mop is broken in. Just like that. And once it's broken in, well, it's time to sand. The key to using these is to not bury them. Ideally, you want to just let the tips of the abrasive follow the contour. In this case, it's not only sanding the contour, but I'm sanding the flattened surface as well. This is allowing me to remove the tool marks as well as clean up the details and any fray that may be in the wood. And as you can see, I go right from the flattened area to the very detailed part of the mountains. 120 is my favorite. Now, on to bowls. As you can see, this does fantastic. Now imagine if this was still mounted to the lathe, it would be a lot easier. In this case, it's not, but I can take care of this by hand. Easy way to use the mops or the stars for this application. Now, on to the bigger pieces, like the furniture parts. Now, for reference, I'm going to pencil this in so you can kind of see the removal that's going to occur. These are not very aggressive, and again, with a variety of grits, you can really choose the one that's right for you. In this case, I'm using the 1x4. Now, if this was mounted in a drill press or some horizontal application, the 6-inch would be the best option for this larger piece, but this just goes to show the versatility of these products. Even the small one will get it done. And as you can see, it's slowly removing the pencil mark while still following that contour and not removing any detail. Now for molding. These can be mounted in a stationary machine, and moldings can be passed over or through the Mops. In this case, I still have it mounted in a right angle drill. Now I chose a stained piece because I want you to see how very subtly this will sand. It does take a little bit of work. Now this is a 120, but if you're doing furniture restoration, this is a great way to remove that existing finish while still following the contour of that delicate piece you may be working on. The sanding mops and stars literally wrap right around that profile. And it does make quick work of removing finishes or sanding smooth if you've got tool marks on moldings. So whether mounted in a right angle drill or a stationary machine, these mops are fantastic for a variety of applications. The mops and stars can also be used to distress wood or create very unique finishes. You can see here I'm using it to clean up barnwood. Fantastic application and works extremely well. This leaves the roughness of the barnwood, but yet still gets rid of those burrs and the dirt and debris that's on the surface. They're so versatile, they're not only for wood applications, they can be used on metal, stainless, and other applications for deburring, distressing, polishing, cleaning grills, rust, just about anywhere in the shop you need them. So check them out today and see whether the sanding mop or sanding star is right for you. To learn more.
Very nicely done. That's the state of North Carolina 3D CNC project you did there. That it turned out really nice. Now, what finish did you put on there, just for giggles?
Satin lacquer.
Okay, look good. So, and that was all natural, right? There was no stains or anything like that added to it. It was all natural, except for the burned edge. Obviously, that was
natural wood, just with a natural flame added.
torch.
And what was interesting was I used a mop that I normally use for doing metal.
Mm-hmm.
I used it to clean up some of the char that were remained from torching. So in that case, I didn't care that I transferred potential contaminants because I was only sanding that charred area. So.
Gotcha. So is it okay to go from wood to metal or metal to wood, or should you just keep them separate?
I still always recommend keeping them separate because different metals will react differently, and certainly different woods will react differently. And in some cases, it's not even if you're going from metal to wood, you may not notice anything until you apply finish. And if you've contaminated that with some, especially like aluminum to wood, that aluminum will shed, and that'll create definitely some finishing issues.
Okay. It's good to know, especially if you're using a water-based finish.
And then some metals, if you use certain woods that have acids or oils in them, and then you go to certain metals, that could create some pretty adverse effects for certain metal applications. It's weird. You'd think that wood and metal wouldn't be so sensitive, but they're very sensitive towards other things.
And that's okay. We don't judge them for that. All right, so let's see. The next one up in this series is the Sand Mop Mandrels. So that's going to be talking about the different mandrels that come in the 6-inch or the 4-inch kits, correct?
Yes, and yeah, I don't think that covers the slotted. I think that's just the mop mandrels.
Gotcha. Okay.
Excuse me.
Well, Bless
Yeah.
you. Yeah, so then in that case, we also have slotted mandrels, which you can create your own type of contour sanding with the very simple 1/4 inch mandrel with a slot at the end, and you can fold your own sandpaper in there.
Hmm.
You can also get one of the bargain boxes, 15% off this week, and have a whole slew of grits and a variety of extras.
And I think the slotted mandrel video, I actually use our shop roll
Oh, sweet.
and show how to take a shop rolled material down to and make your own little mop.
Well, let's find out first about the sand mop mandrels. Here we go.
Hey everybody, Chris here with Klingspor's Woodworking Shop, back with another in our video series on contour sanding. Today, we're going to be looking specifically at the mandrel options that we have available for the sand mops. We have a lot of options because, well, there's people use them in different ways and have different applications. So whether you're trying to mount it on a 1/2 inch or 5/8 shaft, or whether you're trying to mount it in some sort of a drill or drill press, we got an option that's right for you. So let's take a look. So just like every contour sanding application is not the same, nor is how it has to be mounted and used. So for instance, we offer this flat bottom for our 1x4 mops. This is a great alternative and reduces potential damage to any parts that may be nearby and still allow you to get in there tight to sand those contours. We offer a standard 2x6 mandrel as well as a 2x6 extra long. Now the nice thing is the 1x4 mops will still work on these and allow you to build the mop to suit your needs based on different washer or spacer application. Now let's say you're not running these in a drill press or some horizontal application and you need to chuck them up so that they're running vertically. Well, that's why we offer these motor options. We have a 1/2 inch shaft option where this mounts right to the 1/2 inch shaft of your motor. This is a keyless chuck so you can fully loosen or tighten this up as needed. Great way to mount these on the side and be able to quickly change those out for those applications where you need to run those vertically. Then we also offer 2 standard shaft operations with a 1/2 and a 5/8. Both have Allen screws to lock it down to the shaft and they're standard lengths to be able to fit normal mop applications. So no matter what your mounting need or what your sanding need, Klingspor's Woodworking Shop's got you covered. If you got any questions, give us a call today and see how we can help you with your contour sanding needs.
Alrighty. So there's a lot of options. So you can take and put those onto a motor if you wanted to. You don't have to have them in a drill press.
Right. And as a matter of fact, at one point, when we had these set up in the store, we had them mounted to a slow speed bench grinder.
Okay.
And then that actually enables you to not only use any of the sanding mops, but it also allows you to use the up to the 2-inch Mac mop with the proper mounting plates, which we don't cover in this particular series.
More options. So you're telling me there's even more variables that we
There's
can.
more options. That's the thing, man. We got it all. We got it all, and then some.
It's great information to have. So if you are looking for contour sanding apparatuses, you can visit woodworkingshop.com
Is it apparatuses or apparati?
or call us at 800-228-0000. If you have any questions, please feel free. Let us know. We're more than happy to help you on those. And so the next one in this case is eyelet stars and mini mops. So now we're going to get into, so we've taken the 4-inch, condensed it down to 2-inch. So you have that same type of, smaller, the fingers. But the mini mops actually have a different shape to them. They're not fingers. They're more of they're like a curve cut. So when they contour at a smaller angle, they're much more contouring.
They're more like little miniature discs with slits cut in them. The discs are mounted back to back instead of the strips. So they'll give you a considerably different result, but they're very cool on small pieces, and you'll see kind of how I use them in a video.
The video that's coming up right now.
Hey everybody, Chris here with Klingspor's Woodworking Shop, back with another in our video series on contour sanding. In today's video, we're going to be looking specifically at our mini mops and our eyelet stars. They look similar, but they're slightly different in how they're going to perform. So let's take a look and see how each one's different and which one's right for you.
Now, a lot of times you've got smaller projects or more detailed projects where you need to really get down into those little carved areas without ruining any of the detail. And that's where the mini mop and the eyelet stars are going to shine. Unlike the bigger cousins, the sand mops and the standing star, where they're a little larger and they do great for bigger pieces, well, they don't do too well on these small scale things. So the mini mop allows you to get right down into all the little crevices, all the little corners. It's a very thin mop. It assembles on a small mandrel, which is perfect for a rotary tool. It allows you to really get in there and get all the nooks and crannies to get all the little details without damaging any of the hard work you've done to get those details. The mini mop is nice. It's available in those three sizes, so it's really customizable to really whatever you need. And they're all sold individually or in the sets. It allows you to get started very easily. So if you carve a lot of feathers, birds, or any kind of detail work on CNC, this is a great little companion to have to do a lot of your cleanup sanding. Simply mounts with that little eyelet screw onto the little mandrel, and you're good to go. As you can see, I've got this mounted to my Proxon little rotary carver with a flex shaft. This is the perfect attachment to allow you to get really right in where you need to be on some of those detailed carvings. And as you can see, the little flaps, instead of strips like with the mops, these are more little layers with just serration pieces on the strip. And they do work well, and they're great for those little small areas. Now, if you need something just a little bit more aggressive to step up your game, step up to the eyelet star. The eyelet star is a great alternative, a little bit larger, still allows you to get into those tight details, and the eyelet star can be stacked onto the mandrel that's available for it. So you can make a double mop out of that. And those just simply thread on. And the way that works, you can see once you get those fluffed up, they get right into those details just like the other mops do and do a really clean job on the small scale stuff. Where the mini mops have interlocking strips, the eyelet star is actually more like a sheet with a lot of little serration strips cut into it, kind of like the bigger brother, the sand mop, and the sanding star. These are very handy with that 2-inch size, and there's a lot of grit range, so we got you covered on that as well. This does have the potential sometimes, if you're not careful, just like with the bigger brother, if you only use one layer, that mandrel can stick through, and you got to be cautious of how far that is so you don't do any damage to your corresponding piece. These are easily removed and easily replaced, again, because of that threaded punched insert that allows you to thread that right on. So these are real easy to change grits, no downtime, ready to go. Simply thread the next one back on and you can create that double mop again. So no matter whether you need a little detail or a little more detail, we got you covered with the mini mops and the eyelet stars.
All right, so that is how the eyelet differs from the mini mops. The mini mops are definitely something that it looked like you were having a duck decoy you were sanding there.
Yeah.
I see.
And they
And so,
both would work on that, but what makes the little mini mop work really well is they're so thin.
mhm.
It allows you to get into much tighter areas that the other mops just wouldn't allow you to get into. And if you the way they sand, they almost sand more like a disc. If you can catch them from the one face, they sand a little more like a disc. You just again got to be careful, as you're going in there. But they do really well for small stuff.
Very cool. Yeah, I do. We've had so is a mini mop. Is that something that is exclusive to Klingspor's woodworking shop?
I hadn't seen them anywhere else.
I didn't think so. It's been years that I've seen them on the shelves here, so wasn't quite sure. But if you're into carving, into detail carving, and you want to sand those smaller areas without removing the detail you just applied by hand,
Mhm.
then the mini mops are a great choice. So let's
As a
see. We've
matter of fact, I didn't carve that duck. I borrowed that from our local carver, John, from our hickory store. And when I returned it, he goes, "You did all that with those little things?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I know what I'm buying now." So ended up showing him the video of what we did, and he was so impressed. He went and bought him a set of the mops. I think he got the 1 and the 2-inch to give him a try for himself. So
Nice. Well, we've got 2 videos left in the contour sanding, and then we at 11 o'clock we will be joined by Richard from Gym Industries. So stay tuned for that at 11. But make sure you don't miss these 2 videos on top of that. All right, let's do this one next.
Hey everybody, Chris here with Klingspor's Woodworking Shop, back with another video on contour sanding. In today's video, we're going to be focused on using shop rolls and our slotted mandrels. This configuration allows you to really customize the application and be able to do a lot of unique things that maybe you couldn't do with one of the other pieces. Well, to make it easy, if you ain't sure which shop roll you want, we do make a shop roll sampler. We offer it in a gold and in our shop roll, both of which work really well. So let's take a look at this and see how you can configure this in your shop.
Well, now a lot of times we got specialty things to do where the other mops may not work quite as well. So that's where the slotted mandrels come into play. They really allow you to customize and create a unique setup for what you're trying to do. Now, because I use a lot of shop rolls in my shop, these slotted mandrels come in handy. Allows you to really customize something whether you're just trying to rough it up or deburr it or whatever. So if you're not sure what shop roll might be right for you, we do offer a sampler pack, both in our shop roll material or in our gold material, both of which are very flexible and give you decent life and very good results on when they're sanding a project. Now these strips are 2 inches by 12 inches, so it's a nice sampler with a good variety of grits. Covers all the ranges, which makes it easy to get into it to figure out which roll is right for you. Now how I normally do this, I'll tear me off a strip, and you can either make the strip wide or you can cut little narrow strips. It doesn't really matter. In this case, you could measure that out and see that would be the normal width if you wanted to at least extend beyond the mandrel. So for our little application though, I'm going to go a little less. These shop rolls tear so easily, which is what makes them so nice and handy to have around the shop. So in this case, you just tear off the size strip you need, and you can fold it in half to get an idea of what the length might be, and if you need to go a little longer, you go a little longer. Once you've identified the right orientation you need, just simply press that into that slot and it sort of locks itself in place. Now it may take 2 to 4 strips depending on what you're trying to do and depending on the material you use. Now you can also cut little serrations in this, kind of like we do with our mops, and that gives it more of a little finger on the end, which is great for getting into little contours. So whether you're cutting the strips into little perforations like that or whether you're using them solid, it really doesn't matter. Both ways work really well, and depending on your application, again, you're customizing this to your needs. And once you get your 2 strips or 4 strips oriented the way you like it, you can see that's kind of how that's going to perform. Now, these are great for outside, inside, just about any application you have. In this case, I want to deburr this pipe. Now, I know this is PVC, but if you're using copper or any other kind of pipe, this is a great way to get inside there. The little flexible strips just literally fold right over, get right in, and it would deburr the end of that pipe. If you're trying to clean up the inside of a hole, same way. Both the shop roll and the gold roll are great for wood and metal applications, which makes this ideal for any scenario you might run into.
Don't worry about that mute button.
Ain't
That's easy.
nobody want to hear from you anyway.
Yeah, get rid of this guy. But no, that's so can you deburr metal with that, or would it take a little bit longer than PVC?
Well, it would take a little longer, but the reason why I felt like I wanted to showcase how those can be used for doing inside of components. They work equally well on the outside, you making your own mop. But that's a struggle that a lot of us have is if we're drilling out holes, how do you sand the inside of those holes?
Hmm,
Well, you could make that out of a stiffer material that just barely fit in there, or like I did there, make it where it would follow right in there. And if you stack enough strips in that little slot at the end of the mandrel,
yeah,
then they'll hold as long as you keep the drill rotating while you're pulling the drill back out.
gotcha.
So they work well. I've used them for brass before for doing plumbing work. Um, Copper, I mean, sorry. And then, on the inside of PVC, but if you're doing wood and you need to enlarge a hole just slightly, maybe you drilled something out and your dowel is just literally too snug to fit in, They'll go really well for cleaning out the inside of the hole that you drilled. So they're so versatile, especially when used in conjunction with the shop rolls or our stiffer material that can be found in our bargain box. They work well, and they may not use them for every application, but those times you need it, they come in handy.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be confused by copper or brass. We had a lot of fun with that on Monday with the Madison table there.
Hmm.
So we got one final video in the series, and then we will start up Gym Ministries at 11 o'clock. So here's the final video. This is the Spindle mounted Mac mop, one of my favorites by far.
Hey everybody, Chris here with Klingspor's Woodworking Shop, back with another contour sanding video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at these spindle mounted Mac mops. These will sand and perform quite differently than the other items we have available. We do have them larger, but we're going to focus on these today.
The spindle mounted Mac mops are available in a 7-inch by 1 and a 7-inch by 2, both mounted on a 1/4-inch spindle. This makes it very easy to chuck into a variety of tools. The main difference between these and our other mops is they actually abrade towards your workpiece as opposed to coming in from the side. This makes it a very unique application. The 1-inch mop is made up of approximately 5 strips across. The 2, on the other hand, is made up of around 10, and you can see from the factory they're pretty crisp. Now, once you use them, they will naturally separate at that perforation, which is what makes them a unique product and able to get right into those details. And this is what allows these mops to be a great addition to any contour sanding arsenal. In a relaxed state, they're not a true 7-inch. However, when you're running them, they will open up and spread out. Well, let's look at some ways we can use these mops. Now, naturally, you can chuck it up in a stationary machine and bring your workpiece to it. In this case, I've locked my workpiece down, and I'm actually going to put this into a right-angle drill. This allows me to bring the mop right where I want it, and as you can see, it follows those contours perfectly. This allows me to get every aspect of this leg. So if you're sanding a lot of furniture parts where it's nothing but one continuous variation of contours, the spindle mounted Mac mop might be right for you. Available in 80 to 240, all you got to do is pick your size and pick your grit, and you can see how these spindle mounted Mac mops can transform contour sanding in your shop.
Yeah, by far that one's my favorite out of all the contour sanding products that we have. Moldings, had to do a house one time, all cherry natural moldings, and you could still see the mill marks, and so that came in handy.
Yeah, the only thing that you got to keep into consideration when you're choosing what mop is right, with the spindle mounted Mac mops, the abrasive is actually flapping toward your workpiece,
Mm-hmm.
and those strips are roughly an eighth to 3/16 wide. So if you've got something that's got a lot of high end detail, you want to be a little cautious that those little strips aren't too wide, even though they will curl and turn. That it won't cause any issues. So um, I personally like them both, and they each have their place in my shop. So
Absolutely. No, they're
that's why
just
we call it the contour sanding arsenal. We got an arsenal of products that we can defeat any need you may have, any sanding foe.
we could sand anything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Love those sanders. They really come in handy for curves. Mr. Kyle Ely from Learn Your CNC, who will be joining us today at 2 and 3 o'clock. Yeah, for all of your CNC needs and 3D carvings, the contour sanding arsenal is fantastic for that. So it is on around that 11 o'clock hour. We are going to be joined by Mr. Richard Biederman from Gym Industries. Richard, are you ready? Nod for us, sir. All right, here we go.
We're ready to go.
Hey, how we doing?
We're doing very well, gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting us for the extravaganza. Really looking forward to chatting with you guys and answering some questions and explaining a little more in detail on our sander that Klingspor has been selling so many of for us. We appreciate that, of course. And hopefully we'll be able to show some of the people out there the use of the tool, why we recommend it, a time saver, obviously, number one, and little knickknacks that I can maybe show that would help people who already have these tools that might have some, not sure about different things. So We're ready.
Absolutely. And may I also let you know about your goatee is superb.
Except mine's a different color than yours and yours, both of you. You'll see what happens when you get older.
There you go.
Oh, I'm already seeing that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Bald is beautiful, as I
Yeah,
say.
we go to the same barber. I like that.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll
So,
let you carry it away, and then we'll make you full screen whenever you are ready.
okay, so basically, our tool, our 11-inch sander, has been in the cabinet shop industry for about 21 years right now. Over the last 5, 6, 7 years, it has expanded into the woodworking part of our cabinet shop world that we're all involved with, especially now with the live edge slabs and river tables, the large conference tables. You know, it takes forever to sand. And our tool is very popular in a lot of different industries. One of them, where some of your customers are doing actually solid surface material, which is a very popular application for the gem sander. That's Corian and related products, which I know Klingspor has lots of customer base who do solid surface. And along with solid surface, we also are in the metal industry, which will be used in the sign industry for sanding the metal. Again, they're large sheets of metal, and you basically are going to reduce labor time by up to 80% when the tool is used. So there's a couple of misconceptions I want to just start with first with our sander. Depending on what people see out in the industry on YouTube, even Instagram, Facebook, if you watch a certain video, you see our tool that is being used for applying oil as your finishing steps on your slabs or river tables or epoxies. And so they buy the tool and they utilize it for that, but don't realize it's really a sander. That's why we call it the gem sander / polisher. So what we try to do here is to recommend that the tool be used as a sander first, and of course a finishing tool second. Some companies have the luxury of buying a couple of the sanders, and they'll buy one without the dust shroud, which I'm going to start walking into my warehouse, and I'm going to show some of the things that I'm referring to. So if you just hang on a second, I'll switch the camera around here and get, let's see. All right, so here's our sander without the dust shroud on there. There's a white finishing pad on top. And here's the sander with the shroud. Basically the same tool, except the one part that we add to it is the dust shroud. So like I mentioned earlier, some companies will buy this one, and that stays in the finishing department, and then they'll buy this unit, and that stays in the sanding department, and that way they can, you know, take advantage of each application. So I guess what I'm trying to get at with that is I'm going to give the camera over to my warehouse manager, and I'm going to go behind the table. This way, they can utilize this tool as a sander, and they can also, with the same tool with the shroud on, once they're done sanding, they can then blow out the tool, takes a few minutes, and then they can put their white finishing pad on and then pour their oil or spread it out and buff it into the surface. So depending on how large your company is, not everybody can buy a couple of tools at a time, but we do recommend highly to try to buy it with the dust shroud so you do get both applications. And if it is done that way, you're getting two tools in one. So that's something that I like to explain, because there's lots of videos that are just showing the sander without the shroud, and that's all people think it is. And what ends up happening, which is the good part, is you can retrofit the shroud on the tool of a sander that does not have one. So there's never an issue. You want to add the shroud, you buy the shroud, it takes about 5 minutes, and now you have a sander. So that's really the easy part of it. Need be if somebody, didn't know it was a sander. So what I'm going to do now is just give a brief demonstration of of our sander with the dust shroud. And right now I have our sander just plugged into a regular Porter cable vac. The sander's plugged in directly to the vacuum, and we're going to turn the sander on. And I want to show people. I always get asked this question: how you move the tool on the surface. The smaller tools are, of course, you have to move them slowly because you're covering a smaller area. Where our sander, you're covering 3 times the area, which gives you the convenience of moving it quicker. That way, you're taking those couple of hours of sanding down to under an hour, and that's where you get that labor savings. The second thing is the weight. The tool weight will do all the work for you. That way, no matter where you move the tool onto the surface, that weight will stay the same, which will then result in level sanding. And that's always been the problem sanding in general. You have one area that looks really nice, and the other area is a little, I call it peaks and valleys. Then you got to go over and match this side with that side, and we feel that our sander eliminates all of that. So basically, when our sander is turned on, we recommend that you just lift it just a hair, just to get it going. And then you just basically are grabbing the handle with your fingertips, like this. And you're moving it at a pretty decent pace. Doesn't have to be too crazy. So right now, by doing this, the weight is the same. You're controlling the tool, where a lot of times the tool controls the fabricator, which is very frustrating at times. And then when you're finished with that grade of sandpaper that's on there, you simply turn the machine off, lift up on it a little bit, put it down, and then you would flip it over, and then you would then change your abrasive to the next grade of sandpaper that you want to use. Then we have this machine, which is obviously the same without the shroud. And once the sanding is complete, that's when you would either use the sander with the shroud or without to apply your oil to the surface for finishing. And that's the ease of our tool. I know there's more to it than that, but the aspect of it's a user-friendly tool. No matter who puts it in their hands, you're not going to hurt anything. And that's been a problem that I see and hear about, where people grab that tool and they do more damage than not. So we feel that it's a user-friendly product. If you notice, the only noise you heard, it was the vacuum. We have a special, it's a ball bearing capacitor motor in our tool. And what that is, it makes it so when you turn it on, the motor doesn't make any noise whatsoever, which is a beautiful thing, because as you guys know, the shops get very loud with tools, and our tool doesn't make any noise other than the vacuum that it's plugged into. So that's kind of a brief, way to show the tool. I want to show a couple other things, but I wanted to see if you guys had any questions for me regarding that. I'm going to grab the camera now and to see if you guys have any questions, or anybody that has some questions, because there's another thing I want to talk about soon after.
Sure. So what we have is just a comment that what a gem of a tool. You got this.
Yeah, I've been asked, do you guys sell diamonds? And I'm like, nope.
It's 11 inches though, right? It's 11 inches.
Yeah, the pad size is 11 inches. This is a tool, a brief background of our tool. Gem Industries developed their first 11-inch orbital car polisher in 1956. That's the design that you just saw of the base part of our tool. The difference is they would put these terry cloth bonnets onto the pad, and then they apply their wax onto a car and work it in just like if you were waxing a car by hand, but the tool is doing everything for you. So that's how that this started, and we kind of got into the cabinet shop industry back in 2000. A few people came up to us and said, I've seen your tool being used at an auto body shop. What's the chances of you making this thing into a sander? We feel if you do that, you would start something new when it came to fabrication of countertops, whether it be solid surface or wood. So we never been in that industry. So I said, here's my hand, hold it and tell me what to do. And that's basically how we started and got involved in cabinet shop industry. We had to retweak the tool, not very much. The motor is the key, because if the motor's not strong enough to handle the resistance of an abrasive once it's on the surface, we would probably have some issues with that. So that was the main change that we did, a stronger motor with more torque. And that means they just put more material, more copper, more metal into the motor itself. And then from there, we just added a couple little extra features, a cover plate, and then a longer cord. Guys like a long cord, they can put it over their shoulder. And of course, we had to create a Velcro drive pad, so you can put your sandpaper on there. So that's what we did. We introduced it, believe it or not, in 2001 at the Solid Surface Show in Las Vegas. And people got the word that we were going to have this tool, and it was pretty overwhelming because we had so many people at our booth wanting to see the tool, and I didn't really know much about the business. So I'm sitting here going, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't answer questions that I don't know things. So luckily I had somebody that was in the industry who helped us out, answered some questions. But from there to today, that's kind of how our tool evolved into, we feel one of the best sanders out there in the marketplace.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And
So,
I've been into hundreds of cabinet shops / solid surface shops.
yeah.
And every matter of fact, that was when a few years ago, we really started pushing. Klingspor started offering the 11-inch disc mainly because we kept seeing it in the shops.
Right.
We said, listen, if we're not going to offer the sander, we at least have to offer the sandpaper for it, for crying out loud.
Sure.
But
Right.
hey, now Klingspor's woodworking shops got the sander. We've done
Yep.
well with it. And matter of fact, I had a funny call the other day, or it was a week or two ago. A guy called and said, yeah, I want one of these sanders. And I said, okay. And we talked, and he goes, yeah, I'm going to sand walls of log homes with it. I went, no, you're not. He goes, yeah, that's the plan. I said, did you check and see how much this thing weighed? I said, you're going to have a buddy, or you're going to have the most amazing shoulders and forearms at the end of this day. And then we got to talking, and he realized, okay,
yeah,
maybe not for walls.
Yeah. Listen, the weight is good when it's on the flat surface. Obviously, when some people, and there are guys who would do that. They could take the tool without the shroud, which is going to be about 6 pounds less, or a little bit less than that, and then do it that way, get a little dust need be. But yeah, that's going to be pretty, But I will tell you, there are people who are waxing cars with the similar model that you see there. And when it's on top of a car, it doesn't weigh anything. The car's holding it. It's when it's on the side, you just, if you hold your hands correctly, you'll be fine. So, but that's a car, not a wall, which makes a big difference.
And one wall would have been one thing. He was doing this for a living. So he was sanding log home walls all day long.
Yeah. We've had somebody who actually was a home builder, and they brought in the logs to sand flat before they put them up, and they thought, oh my God, we need 1,000 discs, to go along with the sanders. They bought a few sanders, all these discs, and before you know it, they probably used maybe 50 discs, because they just were done so quickly with each log that it was just ridiculous. So again, it made it much easier for them to do that type of product, especially those are long. And today, as you see every day, those live edge slabs get larger and longer and longer. I mean, it's unbelievable. And just somebody had posted a video the other day. They were doing this ginormous table, and they had two of our sanders, and they're holding one in each hand, going in different directions, sanding this huge tabletop, and it was pretty funny.
I've had conversations with folks about that, and they're doing slab work with a 6-inch orbital, and they're just exhausted at the end of the day. And they said, "Man, I'm just going to be so much more tired after using this." I said, "No,
Yeah.
you're not. This sander is not going to wear you out. You're not having
Right.
to guide that. You're not having to drive this sander. This sander will
Right. That's
glide
the
across
key.
the
Yeah.
top."
Yeah.
And we've sold them and gotten rave reviews of customers who've done just that and been so happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, there's no surface too small either. I've talked to people and they go, well, I'm only doing this size. It's a small top, and maybe it's 6 feet by whatever. I'm like, well, that's perfect. I have guys I see on Instagram, they're doing cutting boards, and they just put the tool on the cutting board and go twice, and they're done, and they just do it that way. Why not? I mean, to me, there's no surface too small. And if you can get the level sanding and the consistency, to me, that's number one. And that's huge. There's another thing I'd like to go over, if you wouldn't mind. I get calls all the time, and you might also, how you change the drive pad. That's a common question. It's simple procedure, but if you've never done it, obviously that first time, it can get confusing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a demonstration of the tool first without the shroud. That way it's easier to see everything, because when the shroud is on, it is blocking the view, and we have a special piece that comes out from the shroud where you can then change the pad, but you get a better feel and idea about how to do it. So I'm going to show it first without. So if you hang on just a second, I'm going to change cameras, and I'm going to have Marcus over here follow me to this table. Marcus, try to get as low as you possibly can on underneath here. You have a good view there? Okay, so our drive pad, I'm going to take it off first, is a metal piece that force fits onto, this is called the brush plate of the sander. This is one of the mechanisms that make this tool orbit. It's about a 7-inch round plate that's connected to our counterweight, which is right underneath. So when the operator is ready to put the drive pad on, they're going to take the pad and they're going to place it down onto the plate. If you notice right here, there's a gap where the pad just doesn't go down all the way. It's designed to do that. It's not going to go flush to this lip. So once you press it down and it stops, your goal is to get this gap even all the way around. The more even that it is, the better your tool is going to run. So basically by doing that, you're just grabbing it almost like a hamburger, and you're just squeezing it once you feel that it's lined up. Right now, it's pretty lined up. Maybe a little lower here. You take a flathead screwdriver and just lift it a hair, and then press. And if you just go all the way around, that gap is pretty much even all the way around. If somebody for the first time puts the pad on and all of a sudden it's like this, well, obviously it's not going to run very well. They just have to make an adjustment, and they can either take it back off and start all over, but it's simply just grabbing it, pressing it, and it's on. That's it. And then what I also recommend, and this takes about a second, once you get the pad on the tool, if you would like, what I do is I put it on a surface with a finishing pad, just like that. Let's say this is a wood table, and I give it a little press evenly on the handles, and then I'll plug it in, and then turn it on, and then I can put a little bit of pressure, just a bit, and it's seating it just a little bit more, and that's it. And now the pad is on. and then you shouldn't have any problems. I'm going to flip it back over. And if you take a quick look here, it's pretty even all the way around, and it's not going anywhere. I'm lifting it by the pad itself. So it's a force fit, it's a taper fit, and that's basically how you would change or put the drive pad on. To remove it, the flathead screwdriver is going to be the key, and all you do, and I explain, I say you just turn it like a key, and it'll pop it right off. It doesn't come right off, you turn it, and now it's off. And that's basically the same thing. A tool with the shroud, if you want to come over here, you know what, I'm going to put it back on this table over here. I'm going to move this here. And I'm going to take another tool and start from scratch. So right here on the tool with the shroud is a little piece of metal that's right below the brush ring. And you just take your finger and pop it right out. And if you look through there, that's where you're going to gain your access on to put the pad on the tool. So again, as I mentioned earlier, because the shroud is on there, you get less visual of really putting the pad on the tool. So now I'm going to do the same exact thing, but I'm going to look through that little opening and I'm going to put it on there. And again, that gap, you just want it to be even all the way around. And if you see one side lower, you just put that flathead in and just pop it up, press down, and then that's it. Then you take a finishing pad, as I did before, turn it on, press down just a little bit on it, and then your drive pad is on. So that's something that we're going to be doing anyways, and we're going to make a video, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to post that on our website, so that way if I get any phone calls, you know, we'll definitely have some people to send up to the website. They could take a look, and it'll make it a lot easier. We do put instructions in the box, but sometimes, as you know, instructions end up in the garbage before they even read it. So these things do happen.
Yep. And so with the instructions on there, sometimes it's just easier to see a video of just
that's why. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's, you know, it's a unique thing. This tool's unique, but putting the pad on is too. So, you know, I want to make it so it is, you know, people will understand what I'm talking about when I say the word gap and things like that. And I, like you mentioned, the video is going to answer all the questions. And I've sent videos. I've made a video real quickly just to send to people who had some questions. You know, can you help me out? I'll say, you know, can I text it to you? And I'll text in the video, and it just makes a world of difference. So,
oh yeah, picture's worth 1,000 words, and I wonder how much a video's worth.
No, absolutely. Video, today's world. I mean, listen, you know, we didn't have that even 10 years ago, really, where you can just, you know, type in something and boom, there you are with exactly what you want to do with whatever it is. So it's just, you know, between social media and everything, it's a good thing. Sometimes it's bad, but I think business-wise, it's always an advantage, you know. So there's always a good place for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, since it's 11 inches, the question that I was thinking of is that could you mount it upside down like on a bench?
Well, you could. The problem would be, would there be enough pressure, let's just say, underneath pushing it up against the surface? Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm thinking like because it's that large and it's random orbit, if someone had small pieces that they wanted to sand, instead of using like a 12-inch disc sander that just spins in a circle, it's not random orbit. It would be quite helpful to have something that's upside down, you know, on a random orbit. Because I take my 5-inch sander all the time, flip it upside down, and do small parts.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're saying. And I've seen people, again, on Instagram, that's what they do. They'll do it upside down. But I've seen it more with the sander without the shroud. Because with the shroud, you are limited because of the brush ring around the shroud that you see. But I've seen guys do that. I think what they do is they put it in between a couple of things to hold it, because if you just turn the machine on and not like put any upside down, it's gonna, because the motor's spinning and that the counterbalance is just vibrating a lot. So you would have to have that really tucked into something so the machine would not move once it is turned on. So anything could be done. I haven't personally tried it, but I've seen people online do it. So I've also seen people. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna ask, where does that motor vent out at the very top or out of the sides at the top?
It's really on the top of the I'm going to show you.
Because if it's on the top, you'd want to be real cautious about actually having that sitting upside down on your workbench.
Yeah, well, we have the vents here in the casting right here, but also if you look, the shroud, when it's on the tool, there is some area of ventilation anyways. So you do get some airflow. If it's this machine, the cover plate that's on here, there's a plastic cover plate and it has holes in it. So you'll have the holes here and underneath where are really above, as I showed you here, you have the vent. So I don't think there would be any issue with that when it comes to the ventilation part and it getting too hot.
Yeah,
this is also
exhaust is crucial for a machine like that. You definitely want to make sure you got plenty of exhaust to escape the heat.
And plus this is a thermally condensed motor. So let's say something weird happened with the cord they're using, the extension cord, and if the motor reaches 165 degrees, it'll shut off automatically.
Okay.
So you'll never burn your motor out. And then when the temperature goes down, then you just turn it on and it's fine. I see that not much, but if I do see it, it's in the summertime and there's no ventilation in the shop and it gets very hot. You know how the summers could be, especially in the Carolinas. It can get really hot, and if they don't have enough, sometimes people put the wrong type of extension cord. So the amperage that's drawing is not enough, and it's going to make the motor run harder than it should, and that's where that temperature will come up and would shut off if there's an issue. Again, if that happens, they just have to let it sit and cool for a few minutes, and then they're back up and running again. But they need to be careful and make sure that they use a proper type of extension cord, which are really the same extension cords that you're using on your smaller tools. Nothing really is different than that. So, but the ventilation part, like you mentioned, it is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I know that you might have, to tell your customer base out there regarding the abrasives that you offer for the gem sander, the varieties that you offer, of course. And, when people are out there, I see your name all the time, so I think they know. But, but Klingspor definitely has all the abrasive needed for the gem sander. How fine do you go on your 11-inch sandpaper?
2000.
Yeah, 2000.
Oh, you do? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And then we've especially with the integration of our green tech material, we've offered that in the higher range because that's wet or dry, and then we've got the different non-woven scuff pads to kind of correspond to that. And of course we've got your both bonnets, your microfiber, and your howl pile as well. Yeah.
And those are used, obviously when they do their finishing. A lot of guys there's a lot of residue still left onto the surface, and those bonnets are really, they do a nice job on picking everything up and taking, getting everything smooth, and it just brings out more luster because you're buffing it in that much better. And of course, the white finishing pads are the most important part of applying your different oils out there. The good part is no matter what oils are out there, it seems that everybody has some really good luck with the tool applying the different varieties of the brands of oils that are being sold in the industry, which is good, but that's a huge part of it too. But like I mentioned, a lot of people, first off, in the solid surface industry, my tool's been called the solid surface sander. And I always try to correct them and go, it's for solid surface, but it's not strictly for that. And you'd be surprised, and you might even, see that also. Somebody's doing solid surface, and then their other part of their company is wood, and they just haven't put two and two together. They had no idea that they could use the sander on their wood because all they've been doing is their solid surface. So that's something that I sometimes hear, and you got to just explain, hey, this is for so many applications, and take advantage of it because it'll work beautifully on wood and solid surface, as mentioned, metal. Actually, they used the gem sander when they built new Yankee Stadium, on their concrete. So yes, it works on concrete material, concrete countertops, which is very popular. Also, I've heard people using our sander for honing granite. It gets a little messy, but it's fine and it's safe. So a tremendous amount of applications that one tool will give you. So that's what I like people to hear, that so they can go, oh, wow, I do this also. I didn't even think about using the tool for that. And then they can go ahead and do that. So that's just something that, the more you can do, the better the tool is, So
I got a call a few months ago. A customer who had already purchased the gem called in and said, yeah, he wanted to use it on his hardwood floors. And I said, well, you can. I said, there's no reason why you couldn't. Think of it as a giant slab. And he was using it to refinish his part of his hardwood floors as a giant edger. So, yeah.
And there's a lot of people who, in a house, they want to resurface or clean up. In their closet, they have a wood floor. They take it, put some knee pads on or a towel. And the beauty of it is you can use one arm to extend it. And that way it's easier for you to move around on a floor. Some guys will go to Home Depot and create a little handle and attach it to both of our handles and make it a U, and then hold the top, and then just do it that way. So, so there's so much you can do. And that's a lot of applications. Yeah, a lot of applications. And, like I said, it started as an automotive tool, and now it's in a countertop tool. And it's just, every day we something different. Actually, we've had the trainer for the Florida Panther hockey team years ago came in and got us tools, a sander, and I'm like, what are you using it for? And he goes, oh, I'm putting it onto the players and massaging them because it loosens up their muscles, because these hockey players are like rocks. So when they have to give their massages, they'll use the tool first, loosen everything up, and then they can go ahead and do the rest of their work onto the athlete. So that's just another thing that some people use the tool for, believe it or not.
Well, you heard it here before. We've got the gym massage tool available on the website. No sandpaper required.
You can have whatever color you want as long as it's black.
Yeah, there you go. So there's a lot of fun little things that you can do with that. So
that's awesome.
Now, I answer this question a lot, so I want you to answer it here. We sell both your firm pad and your regular drive pad. Now, I know that the firm pad comes with the shroud. The regular comes without. I want you to explain a little more about why you would use one versus the other.
Okay.
To maybe help answer some other questions that may come down.
All right. I was actually on my notes also. So I get that all the time. We feel that the firm pad, when it comes to sanding, is a better pad than a softer pad, because if it's too soft, all of a sudden you're rounding areas and you're going backwards basically. So we came out with a hard pad years and years ago. It was made out of rubber, but it was so hard when you turn it on, you couldn't hold a machine. So we try to come up with a more denser foam than what's on the softer pad. So I say to people, it's about 30% firmer. So here's the thing. I recommend it for sanding. Can it be used for finishing? Absolutely. Either or, soft or firm, could be used for finishing. So in the solid surface world, they're fine with the firm pad when they sand. It's because it's a whole different material. It's not as soft. It's a harder surface, and they have no issue sanding with the softer pad. And to let you know that I would probably have to say 60% of the gem sanders in the solid surface world don't have the shroud on it, because of the fact that they don't feel that the dust is a big deal, because it's not as much as wood. And then again, the softness of the pad is fine for them. We recommend, obviously, if they're going into a hospital or a restaurant, yeah, get the shroud on there so you don't make a mess. So if they're doing a home installation, warranty repair work, you know, you want to put that shroud on the tool. But I recommend the firm pad for sanding. I recommend also the firm pad if they need for finishing. It's not going to make anything different between the softer of the two pads. We just happen to put the softer pad on the machine without the shroud. That's just kind of how we did it at the beginning, and you know, we haven't changed. And I probably could go one day and just go, okay, just a firm pad. Nobody would really see any difference in the work that they get from the tool itself.
Okay.
So
that's a good answer on that one, because yeah, we do get that a lot.
Yeah. And the firm pad definitely, I mean, the softer pad could definitely no issues with the solid surface, because that stuff comes in already flat. But for those slab guys who are looking for to really flatten out a slab, that firmer pad definitely is the way you want to go. And since it already
the firmer, the more aggressive you can be.
Yeah.
That's, you know, kind of how I put it. And you're correct with the solid surface. So when they're using our tool in solid surface, they do use an 80 grit, believe it or not, because once you put your seams together, they want to sand them down. And a lot of people use a belt sander for that, but a lot of them like to use our sander. And that way they don't get as many, you know, the belt sanding marks. And it can level easily the glue, you know, with on a solid surface material. So, yeah, so that's always, I probably sell more firm pads than softer pads now compared to what I did maybe 5 years ago. And because you know, just the more preference. That's basically what it is.
When the hooks wear out on the dry pad, just change out the whole dry pad, right?
Yeah. There's no individual parts. I always recommend changing the pad no longer than a year, because as you use it, that dust breaks down the foam. And once the foam starts breaking down, you're going to lose the flatness on the top of the pad. You want that pad to always be flat. And if it starts to wear, it changes. And that's where I would say that's when you want to buy a new pad. They're very inexpensive, and you really get your money's worth because they do last a long time. Speaking of that, I want to show one other demonstration regarding the hook it pad and an abrasive. Every so often I'll get a call. I'm going to have Marcus grab this and flip it around. In fact, I'm going to do it on this one right here. So I always get, every so often get a call, my pad tore. I said, where did it tear? Right underneath the hook. I'm like, okay. What you're doing is you're grabbing the hook and the foam and the sandpaper at the same time, and you're pulling it off. You're putting stress on the foam, and if you keep on doing that, you're gonna tear it. So my recommendation is lift up just a little bit. Now you have the hook right here, and now pull away. Now there's no stress on the foam, and your hook it will be fine, and it'll hold up longer. And but that's, sometimes I hear that, and I know it's not a delamination issue on that. It's operator error, and because they're grabbing both at the same time. And if you keep on doing, it's held by, you know, a contact cement, and it's, you know, it's not, you know, bulletproof. So if you're careful, your pads will last a lot longer. If you start grabbing the hook at the same time, you're going to tear it, you know. So, but like I said, once a year, at least change the pad.
Now, listen, we know we can't say operator error because people get offended. What you have to say is it's a technique issue. Let me show you
It's a
the proper
technique.
technique.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah,
There
he's
you
not
go.
kidding about that because we had one recently. We Chris and I are a part of our online chat. So if people go to woodworkingshop.com, they click on, they have a question, they ask it. This one was one of my favorites with the Jim Sander because they're saying, I'm trying to find the PSA pad because I want to stick it to that foam pad. And we're thinking, but it's hook and loop. And that's because they had the one pad with the hook and loop completely removed. Someone had been using
so they were.
PSA on it.
I've seen that. I've been asked, do you have PSA paper? I'm like, why? It's
Exactly.
Velcro. You're going to use your 100 grit one time, and then you're going to throw it away.
Yeah.
I mean, people need to have to learn, but yeah. Just if you take care of it, they last. They're made really well. And, the operation that we do on our end to assemble a pad, there's many steps, lots of adhesive, and it's a solid piece when we make them. So
you guys
the
make them there in-house, or you?
What we do right now is pretty much a lot of our stuff here in our offices and warehouses here in Fort Lauderdale. We have a tool and die maker who makes our counterweight and brush plates. We have molds that we've had for years and years, and they make the parts and ship them here to Fort Lauderdale. Our castings, we have the dies for our castings, and they make the castings, send them, we drill them, we powder coat them, and then we have them here at our offices. So we pretty much do the assembly of the tool right here. And when it comes to the drive pad, I have an outside third-party company who I provide all the foam and the metal piece, and they laminate everything together.
Okay.
Because you need to have a certain setup when you're dealing with adhesive.
Mhm.
And if you don't have the proper ventilation and everything, the cities don't like that. So we're not really geared for that here at our facility. We're basically, assembling our tool and getting all the other parts in, and then sending them out, all over the country.
But when you're when you're sending them out though, at the same time, and you're assembling them there, so you actually have the quality assurance that they have been tested before they go out.
Yeah, there's a QC once they're put together. It's actually two, because the company who assembles does a QC, and then when we get them here, we go through every single one. Because what we do, I don't know if you've noticed, on the back of the pan, this one doesn't have one, we put the dates on when it was made. We put it in magic marker. That way, if somebody has a problem, I could say, what's it say in the back? And it'll tell me 9/16/21. Okay, so that was made, in September of 21. So, but each individual we look at, and then not just spot check, but each and every one. So that way, if there's any issue, that'll go to the side. We don't have to worry about sending them out and not have any issue when the customer receives the product.
Nice.
Or when you guys send the product, yeah. So there's actually two QCs on that. And there's QCs on the foam. The companies who manufacture the foam pieces for us, they're looking at those also. So if there's something that's not the way it should be, they'll either toss it and, because they won't ship something that's bad. So so there's a lot of QC work to make sure everything is good.
Now, what I like about it is that you're not just purchasing it from somewhere in a box and then, basically just shipping it out to the distributors. There's a lot more hands-on involved in this.
With our product, and people like this, especially in today's world, everything is U.S. made. Everything that we have made, including our motor, is made here in the States. Our design of our motor has been around forever. The frame of the motor and all the cords, even the switches, the capacitors, they're all local. I mean, that's what they tell me. So no, but yeah, we're not just getting boxes in and stick them up. It's hands-on. Listen, we're a very small company, and I think that's sometimes an advantage because you don't get lost in paperwork shuffle. You don't get lost with all the different items. And this way, we're here. We look at everything. We test everything. When we build the tool, we run the tool before we even put it in the box. So everything is definitely um, secure and QC'd, and because listen, I don't want I don't want you have to get a call. I mean, do we have every blue moon? Yeah, I mean, anything could happen, you know, but we're pretty good, and I think you guys can attest for that. And when there is an issue, they call us and we take care of it. That's it, and that's customer service, and we feel that's number one. You know, when people call us, have a problem, they're talking to me, and they're not talking to you know, somebody else somewhere else that's just yesing and knowing. You know, they'll talk to me, and if there is an issue, we get it taken care of ASAP. And I think that people appreciate that, and you know, I've had people comment, you know, you guys treated us like gold. Thanks for helping us out, troubleshooting. You know, somebody can call me on the phone. Hey, let's go on FaceTime. Show me what your question is, and I can help you out. So you don't get that all the time.
No, that's very true. I was just trying to think. So everything everything is sourced locally, so there's no, you have stock.
We have stock. Knock on wood, that our supply chain has been great, and we haven't run into any problems. And I think a lot of it is because everything is here. And if we were relying on shipments coming in from abroad, with what's going right now with the containers and the delays and the ports, we would have some problems. And I know some of the other tools that everybody sells, and I'm sure including your company, there's problems out there. They're not coming in as quick right now, and there's a backlog, and people are concerned. Oh yeah, and we've been very fortunate. And I plan differently because the lead times might increase, not because they're not having any stock. It's just because they have to order differently now, because everybody else with supply chain, it's like a domino effect. So we had to adjust our ordering because of that. So right now, if we're ever out, and it's for a short period of time, you know, and that's the good news. So
that is the good news. And so I need to ask this: how did you get started with Gem Industries? And then at the same time, how long have you been there?
Okay, well, long story short, it was a family business back in the middle 70s. My father actually not started Gem, but he bought it from a company back, like I mentioned, in the 70s. It was a friend of his, and we were strictly automotive. And my brother and I worked with my father. And as the years went on, I was very young, so I didn't get involved with the business till the early 80s myself. So that's how the business started. And it was sold one time since. And I stayed with the company. My brother wanted to do something else. And my father, you know, since then he's passed away. But I've been here, God, 30 something years now, I think. So I've seen it all. I've helped develop this whole thing with the woodworking industry and the solid surface. So I woke up one day in the automotive industry, and then woke up the next day and I'm dealing with countertops. So that's been an adventure, but it's been fun. And I've really enjoyed that part of it, you know, learning, you know, and I'm amazed, you know, at what people can do with our tool and the things that they make and build. I'm fascinated, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people and let them educate me. And by doing that, at least if I speak to somebody, I can help them out just by what I've been, you know, shown or taught, and try to sound like I know what I'm doing. So, you know, if I can't answer the question, I will say, why don't you, you know, call so-and-so, or go onto Instagram with the other people who are using the product. They're more than happy to answer questions. Everybody's very, very nice and knowledgeable, and don't have any issues sharing, you know, to a point. Yeah, so it's been really a cool ride, and we're really, you know, I'm enjoying it. It's a small company, and I like that. It's like a family, you know, feeling, and it makes going to work a pleasure.
Now you can just tell by your, you know, just the overall passion you have behind it, that you've been there a while, you've seen changes, and you're very much involved. So just
very much. Yeah.
I had a feeling there had to be more to that story than just, you know, you work there.
Yeah, I wear a lot of hats here. So if I have to sit there and help put machines together, I'll do that. If I have to help load a truck, hey, it is what it is, you know? That's that way, you know, it's getting done the right way. And, you know, are we sometimes control freaks and we want to make sure everything's done perfectly? Yes. And I think in a way, that's a good thing, you know? That way, you know, things are going well.
Well, we get a lot of questions from people asking, what's you know, what do you recommend? I want to start sanding and flattening slabs. And there's two tools that I recommend. One is the gem, and the other is a spoil board bit that is sold by Amana. Those are by far the two most popular things that when I pitch that to customers and they actually follow through, I get calls back and emails back saying, "Man, I wish I would have known about this a long time ago."
Yep, I see that. I see those too, and it's a great feeling when you see that because they really appreciate the product. You know, it means something to them. They're not just buying it to buy it. They're seeing results immediately, and by doing that, you know, like you said, they call you and say thank you, and just tell them start ordering some more abrasives.
That's very true. And at the same time, you know, when you have that tool and you see it, the first time I saw it, I thought this thing's going to be loud. It's going to be obnoxious being that large. I mean, 11-inch sander, and it is super quiet. Like it's no joke. The vacuum is way louder.
It doesn't make a noise. I mean, just the vacuum, which is fine because that means it's working. So that's, again, it's, you know, you don't see any tools, any of them really, that have a ball bearing capacitor motor. All motors and all the different tools have brushes. And we feel that the maintenance part of it, of our tool, is really just blowing the tool out, you know, maybe once or twice a month. If you do that, there's no reason for that tool not to last for years, you know. And that's what we like about it. There's nothing in the motor to change. There's no brushes to change. There's no gears, nothing. It's just, you know, maintenance, taking care of your tool. And if you do, you'll see the end result.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
we've had zero complaints, and we Mike and I have actually talked about doing a video of from start to finish on surfacing and flattening a slab, sanding it to the proper finish, and then finishing it. And we want to do it. Obviously, we've been talking about that now for at least 2 years, and we just have yet to do it. But we want to do that because it'll showcase the tools that we offer, different techniques that can be used, and obviously the gem, and then the proper way of applying the finish side of it. So that's our end goal, and we'll turn that table into a project probably for one of our lives.
That would be cool. I would love to see that. Absolutely. Actually, I just did a woodworking show, a small one in Houston, Texas, a few weeks ago, and it was really nice. You know, it was all the locals from the area that are woodworkers. And I actually, for the first time doing a show, I brought up, there was a piece of live edge slab. And so I was actually sanding on it. And that's about as close of the real thing that you see. I mean, right now I'm sanding on plywood. Well, yeah, everything, you know, plywood's plywood. You got to use it. But I felt using like a live edge slab was really nice, and you know, people can really get up close of the tool, you know, doing its job on there. And so it's nice. So and
the nice thing about that is you could actually sand it, finish it, and then sand the finish off, and you still have the same piece you can keep reusing over and over and over.
Yeah, you can keep on reusing it over and over. Absolutely. Which is really cool. Again, that's one of the things that I'm just really enjoying, watching the work that people are doing all around the country. It's just amazing. One quick note, I know we're probably short for time. We make the gem sander in a 220 volt. So if you ever have any customers who you send stuff to out of the country, we have the tool. We have another motor that's a 220 volt motor, 50 hertz motor. And I have guys in Australia. I just, you know, had one of my distributors in Germany just sold somebody a couple of sanders out there. So it's anywhere in the world. Absolutely. And we've been exporting forever. So this is nothing new for us either. So if there's any international business that you have, please make sure they know that it could be offered to them in 220 volt.
That's great to know, actually. So thank you for telling us that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So,
Well,
and
Richard, I appreciate you joining us. I really do. Like, this was a great conversation altogether because I
yeah,
learned a lot.
I appreciate the opportunity to come on with you guys and answer questions and explain the tool, because I really believe when people see it out, being used, they understand it more. Obviously, tasting and touching and feeling is the best way, but if not, this is the second best way to show what the product's all about.
Yep. And you know your presentation's good when you don't have a lot of questions because you're answering them all as you go through. Like, I'm trying to think of a question and then you hit the answer on it. I was like, okay, never mind. I don't have that.
That's what I'm trying to do, because there's so many, and I wrote them all down, and I'm just like, I have a sheet of paper I want you to know over there. So I think I covered it. In fact, I'm one more second, and I'm just going to make sure, but I think I have everything there, and I'm sure you guys are ready to get me out of here right now. Yeah, but make sure that your customers know that if they buy the sander without the shroud and they decide they want it, they can buy the shroud separately.
Okay.
Yeah. And that way, and it doesn't take very long to add that on. The only other thing they would need is probably a firm pad, because they're going to use it for sanding.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good to know.
So, yep. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you again. I really do appreciate you joining us for our woodworking.
Yeah, thank you very much. Our company appreciates the business. Keep it going. We're here for you. And if anybody has any other questions, feel free to reach out to me.
All right. Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot.
much.
Looking forward
All right,
to
guys.
years and years more of partnership with that.
Absolutely. We're enjoying it. Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
All right. Have a good day, guys. Take care.
Well, thank you for joining us our morning session of Klingspor's Woodworking Shop 21st Annual Woodworking Extravaganza at woodworkingextravaganza.com. You can see the schedule for the rest of the week. Join us at 1 p.m. is a CNC expert, Mr. Randy from Next Wave CNC. Then at 2 o'clock, there is Mr. Kyle from Learn Your CNC. And then we're joined by those two and Frank from Amana Tools in a CNC forum board led by Chris, who is our CNC expert, if you didn't know.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's the case. All questions get diverted to him. He's the expert.
Yeah. So it's going to be a fun afternoon. We look forward to that. If you've got CNC questions, maybe you've been thinking about it, even small scale, let us know and save your questions up and ask, and somebody on the panel surely will have an answer. So I guess until then, I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike Z, and we'll see you back at 1 p.m. Thank you for joining us, everybody.